Hello, Gordon, and welcome to the first interview for Real Life Media. First
Hi.
studio interview.
Hi, Billy. Glad to be here. Thank you very much for inviting me.
Not a problem, mate. And first and foremost, I'd like to thank you for myself and the rest of my family for your participating in my sponsored walk for Ayrshire Hospice. Thank you very much. I'd also like to thank Rose Riley, who set us off on our way, and hopefully she'll be there to see us finish.
Excellent.
To begin with, where were you born and bred?
Edinburgh.
Edinburgh.
I was born at a very early age in Edinburgh, in my mother's front room. 40 Preston Field Road, Edinburgh. You still remember the address, yeah? So that's me. I came to Ayrshire in 2006.
2006.
But, and before that, I had stints in Fife, Dundee, and for the first 27 years of my life in Edinburgh.
In Edinburgh.
Aye.
That's a nice place, Edinburgh.
Aye, it's dear to my heart.
So, tell me a little about your life, education, football team. I know you played rugby, etc.
Okay, as I say, I was born in Edinburgh in Prestonfield, so I went to Prestonfield Primary School, and from there I went to Boroughmuir, which was rather a posh school at the time.
All right.
It's a council school, but it was a senior secondary, so I lasted there till I was 15, and then left to join the scientific civil service and work in a lab. So that was me really. I started playing rugby at school. My dad was a big Hibs supporter. I ended up supporting Hearts. I don't know why, but there you go.
You had to be popular.
Aye, but by that time my dad had given up on Hibs. For years I thought they were called Hibernian Nil because every time they read the score out on the TV, said Hibernian Nil. I thought that was their name. No, I was a Hearts supporter and still am. Although it's been about 40 years since I was been at Tynecastle, so I'm an armchair fan.
Well, why not? Why not? So moving on for that, what was you said about your job, your first job? At what age did you become involved with politics?
Oh, it depends on what you mean by involved. It wasn't until 2014 and the independence referendum that I became involved. I'd always voted SNP ever since my first job. I was of age to vote. Apart from once I voted Green Party because I wasn't an SNP candidate. But always voted SNP, but wasn't involved until the referendum in 2014, where I joined the party. The trouble before that was when I was working, I was in quite a responsible position. I was, head of science and then principal in a further education college. And I just didn't feel right to me. It differs from person to person. It just didn't feel right to me to be, strongly showing views one way or the other when, you're in charge of a college.
Yeah.
Now, I know that everybody doesn't feel like that, but that was me. So I just didn't get involved until I retired. I retired in 2014. And it was just fortuitous. It was 2014, the referendum was coming along, so everything worked out fine, so I could get involved in that.
Excellent. Well, you made great progress for 2014 to then become the local SNP councillor in such a short period of time, really, when you think about it.
Well, I don't think it was fortuitous. They wanted to put up two candidates in every ward, but they only had one candidate in this ward, and I was actually active in the branch. That means I was going along to branch meetings. Political parties can be funny, you can have 200 or 300 members and maybe only 9 or 10 of them actually turn up at meetings. But I was one of the ones that turned up at a meeting. So I know because of my background, because I'd been principal at a college, I was I suppose I was an obvious choice, really. And the way it worked out was quite interesting in that there was a sitting SNP candidate, Ewan McCall, and I pointed out to them that Jenkins came before McCall in the alphabet, so my name would come first on the list, so I would get the votes and he wouldn't. No, they said it'll be okay. And unfortunately for Ewan, that's exactly what happened. I got elected, and Ewan, who was a sitting candidate, didn't.
Didn't.
And I'm sure it was simply because Jenkins comes before McCall in the
Ah.
alphabet. But there you go. I was very happy and very proud to have been elected to serve the people. And I'd like to think I did a good job. I've not had any complaints anyway. But yeah, it was a great time. I really enjoyed it.
You certainly represented SNP well in East Ayrshire, and from my experience of dealing with you before we became friends, you were always impartial to other people's views. You fought as much for say a Tory supporter as you did for an SNP supporter. No, you.
And I never even asked, never even came into my head to ask. You're there to represent and help everybody.
Yep.
And that's one of the great things about that job as a councillor. You get to help people. You know, it's you're getting paid to actually help people, which is brilliant. And that's what I liked about my job when I worked in further education. Again, I was teaching, so I was getting paid to help people. And I've been lucky like that in my life. I've often had jobs where I was getting paid to help people.
Yep.
Even when I first retired and I was delivering for the Indian and for the fish and chip shop, I was still helping people get something to eat.
We had a, what would you call it, a kind of rough start when we met. I wasn't in the best of places mentally. I was dealing with a lot of health issues, but you never turned your back on me. You always answered the phone. There was never any issues that way. When we started the sponsored walk, although we'd communicated and we'd had jibes at each other over Facebook and things, you didn't really know me and I didn't really know you. We didn't. I didn't know if I could have disliked you after a week, and vice versa. But I would like to think we actually became friends.
Oh, yeah. You're one of my best pals now, Billy. Unfortunately for you, you're it. So no. Just see, if you're genuine with people, and you are genuine with people, and you're straight and you're genuine, you can have different views on things.
Yeah.
And you can exchange views on things, and as long as you're willing to not accept other people's views, but listen to what they're saying and enter into a conversation rather than an argument, there's no reason why you can't get on.
Well, we're reaching nearly the 80-mile mark. It's nearly been a year.
That's right,
We've had many, we've never had any really debates as such. We've had many. I think all our walks has mainly been talking about politics and I think it is because in the last year, politics have been changing so quick that there's been that much to talk about.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I've enjoyed our conversations. One of the things I like about our walks, as well as getting some fresh air and some much needed exercise, I've enjoyed our conversations. And it's not all been about politics. You've told me a fair bit about your life, and I've told you a fair bit about mine. So we've exchanged information about each other that way. But we've discussed things as they've come up, and you give me your slant on something that's come up on the TV. I give you my slant on it, and that's the way it goes.
And we got our T-shirts made up. Yours said yes, mine said no. And we explained to people that although we've got different political views, doesn't mean to say we can't be friends. Just to point that out in a humorous way.
Right,
So we've got that wee bit out the road, and like I say, there's been that much craziness in politics over the last couple of years. One thing that stuck in my mind about one of our conversations was we were talking about the cost of living crisis, and you told me that in the 70s and the 80s, no one parent could go and work, and that was enough. That put food on the table. There was always a parent at home doing the stuff that's needed at home, whereas nowadays two parents are working
And they still can't make ends meet.
and they're still not making ends meet. They're taking on second jobs, delivery jobs, which means they're not really there for their kids as much.
No, I mean, what's despite what they say about things, what's happened is that in general, people's lifestyles and living might have got better in general, but it's on the back of the fact that you need two incomes coming into your house now.
Yeah.
It used to be, and it wasn't. I'm not saying it was a good thing this way, but the man went out to work and the woman kept the house. Now, I'm not saying that was a good thing in as much that there was no reason why women couldn't go to work and the man couldn't keep the house, but that's just not what happened. But my point would be, no, whether it's a man or a woman going out to work, the fact is that one wage would do.
Yeah.
And you could raise a family on one wage. I'm not sure if it was 70s or 80s, but certainly the 50s and 60s.
Yeah.
I was born in the 50s, but you know, but I certainly remember the 60s. And certainly one wage coming in was enough. Nowadays, it's no one. To my mind, all that's happened is rich folk have got richer, and your person in the street hasn't got any richer at all.
The working class are getting poorer. That always seems to be the trend. I know in the 80s growing up, it was my mum went to work in a carpet factory in Kilmarnock. It was my dad who raised me for the first 6 or 7 years, I'm sure. And it was a happier time, a simpler time. I think things are more complicated nowadays with all the information you can get from all various sources. Like I say, parents aren't there to spend as much time with their kids as they probably wish they could, because they're taking all the overtime that's gone. They're doing, like you say, it's a working man who suffers, isn't it?
I read something. It was just this morning, in actual fact, on Facebook, and it was said as a joke, but it was a conversation between a worker and the owner. And the worker had said to the owner, "Oh, boss, that's a lovely car you've got there." And the boss says to him, "Aye, it is. And if you work hard and do all the overtime you get and go on courses and learn more, I'll be able to buy an even better car next year."
And that's about true. That sums it up, although it's a joke.
Aye.
Yeah. My view is, see, when COVID kicked in, Rishi Sunak unfortunately was the Chancellor. Every day in the House of Commons he was standing up, "I'm pledging 5 billion to this, 3 billion to that, 9 billion to this." You've got to wonder, where did all that money go? Because it certainly didn't come to help the working class. And then it's all come out the Tories' friends all started making latex gloves, masks.
Aye, there's a lot of alleged. I'm saying alleged because you never know about in every single case, but it sounds to me as there's a lot of skullduggery going on there.
Definitely.
And people taking advantage of the situation. But that's, but you know, the Tories haven't changed. They've always been like that.
Yep.
We ken what they're like. Folk vote for them, so folk must be happy with it. I mean, they get into government, so people must be happy with it.
We've no voted for the last one.
But even the days,
five prime ministers,
even the days of Thatcher.
Oh,
the Tories were like this. We've always known what they're like. People vote for them. And now I could make a case that Scotland doesn't vote for them, and that's just if we were independent, then we wouldn't. The Tories, I don't think, would ever get into power in Scotland. I think a socialist party would get into power in Scotland if we were independent. I don't think it'd be the SNP, because the SNP would have to change, because if we were independent, then the reason for the SNP is kind of gone. But the same characters would surface again under a new, perhaps lefty centre party, something like
Yeah.
that. I think.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, time will tell.
Aye.
Time will definitely tell. But I do remember at the time saying to my wife, every morning he was pledging billions to this and billions, and I says to my wife, this is going to put us into a recession at the time. And although they're trying to kid on we're not in a recession, the fact is we really are in a recession. It's just nobody likes to highlight the fact. The news would rather report on Ukraine, China, just to take their minds away from all our own problems in the country.
Yeah.
I mean, they put that barge, they put 15 people on it, and then they found Legionnaire's disease in the water. Now, that shows you how brainless they are. Because why would you not wait till the results come back and then fill it? No 15 people, fill it.
Aye, it's strange that was not checked before they put folk in it, but these things happen. I suppose you never know. There's the professionals who want to do all the checks, but there might have been, and I don't know, but there might have been political pressure on them to get folk in to make, like, we've got people in this bar, and
I think that's what Rishi wanted. Just get some people on it, and at least we can say
we've started to use
it. But I think we live in a day and age now. It doesn't matter if you vote for Tory, Labour, Greens, Liberal Democrats. I think you're just going to get the same services what we've been getting. The main problem at the moment is, and it's got to be highlighted, is illegal immigration. So the way I see it, they're doing something illegal by coming here. If I do something illegal, I get punished. They're getting money, good clothes, cigarettes. There's people in prison who've done stuff illegal who they're not allowed to smoke. They're not allowed mobile phones. There's 20 already absconded for that RAF base because they were running shuttle buses into the nearest towns and cities. So I don't know what they were to do, but give them a wee bit of freedom, but 20's no come back already. So when you're talking in numbers of 20 and 15 on a barge, it's really 50,000. So it's a big problem. And I think that'll be the Tories' downfall. But I don't think you're going to get any better for Labour.
Well, Keir Starmer has said that a lot of these policies he's keeping, he's not going to change, because the truth of the matter is that these policies are they're popular. They're popular in the base that he needs to win, which is England. So no, I don't think things will change much if Labour or the Tories are in power there. The thing about immigration is that I think that I'm not arguing about the numbers, and I'm not arguing that something needs to be done to stem the tide, but I think sometimes that the language that's used isn't actually correct. Like, for example, under the UN Charter, you're allowed to arrive in a country by any means which you can. So the mere fact you've jumped in a boat and come over the channel doesn't necessarily make it illegal. The fact you've not applied, I think, is the difficulty. But then again, there isn't any way. We make sure there's no way to apply or there's no way to come through. But I think the bigger issue and the more general issue about immigration is, and again, it shows up the difference between different parts of the United Kingdom. The population in Scotland is falling. Mind you, I might not be around for it, but certainly you need people paying tax and working to pay your pension when the time comes, pal. If our population keeps falling, there's not enough people going to be working to pay the pensions. So Scotland needs immigrants. We need more people to come here. Whereas in England, England's overflowing. It doesn't need it. But of course, the way things are set up at the moment, you can't allow folk to immigrate into Scotland and stop them going to England, because all it would happen is they just come to Scotland and they jump on the first train and go down to London.
Yeah.
So the way the UK is set up, you can't have two different policies. You need to have,
Yeah.
but you can't. Again, another reason why I would go for independence, because that way Scotland could get the immigration it needs. So we've got plenty of workers to keep the factories going and everything. Know that we've got many factories these days, but enough people paying tax, and then England can then easily stop people coming from Scotland. You're just using Scotland as a route to get into England because there'd be a border. I think. I don't know.
I'm pro immigration. Obviously, somewhere, sometime, some generation in my family's been immigrants. I'm totally pro immigration for people who come here legally to work. We've got qualifications. We need doctors, we need nurses, we need carers, we need welders, joiners, electricians. I'm totally pro immigration. And you're correct about the UN, you can enter any country, but if you're fleeing persecution, you must stay in the first safe country you reach. Whereas a lot of these people are coming through several safe countries to get to Britain.
And a lot of them are economic migrants. They're no fleeing persecution. They're just, they think they're going to get a better life here. They're economic.
Of course, yep. And my point is, this is how silly governments are. Under the Geneva Convention, it was set up in the 50s. Britain's allowed to pick them up and take them straight back to France. They don't need to bring them to Britain. Why not just do that? It'll upset Macron, but who cares? He should be dealing with this a lot better than what he is.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. You hear that many stories in the press, and you read that many things. I didn't care what's true and what's not true. I'm not saying what you're saying about the UN is true. For example, I was reading something that France had actually offered to allow us to set up a centre in Calais where people could be processed, and then they could either be refused or they could be accepted legally. But Britain didn't agree to it. Now, I don't know whether that's true or not. You read things, you just can't tell. As you said earlier, we live in a world now where we get loads and loads of information thrown at us. The trouble is that we can't often tell what's the right story and what's the wrong one, you know? And you see it all the time. If people lie long enough and can repeat the same lie, eventually everybody starts believing it.
Yep. No, I totally understand. The EU told Britain that we can't lock these people up or put them in camps, or you'd get called Nazis, whatever, right? The EU have got 5 secure camps. And I forget the name of the island, but it's within EU territory. They've got 5 camps, fences, barbed wire. It's a bit of do as I say, not as I do, coming for the EU.
It could well be. What I didn't understand, and I mean this, I don't know, I'm ignorant of how this works. For example, Britain came out of the EU, we had Brexit. No something I agreed with, but that's what happened, we came out of it. So if we've come out of it, how can they tell us what to do? It must be something to do with the Convention of Human Rights. I don't know, because the people who were promoting Brexit, saying it was us taking back control. Well, how have we taken back control if the EU can still tell the UK government what to do? I just didn't understand that.
It's because Britain's still got to answer to the European Human Courts. It's, although we're out, we're still kind of one foot in. Can you know this? I don't know if this maybe just wrong, but for every boat that arrived in Britain, I would tell Macron the price of fishes went up, seafood went up, and do it that way. If it makes
It'll
money, it
make, you
makes
know,
sense.
it'll make economically. I
If it
don't know.
makes money, it makes sense.
Well, you know, there's another way. I was reading. Sorry, I was hearing on the news. It was on BBC News last night. Something about they were interviewing people in Cali, you know, that were trying to get across in boats, and they're given £2,000. These guys, £2,000 to these smugglers to get them across, and they said there was 70 people in the boat. I'm going £2,000 each, 70 folk. That's £140,000. Listen, the British government could make a wee bit of a couple of bucks here just by we'll run our own boats across.
You could.
Run our own boats across, and what to do is you pick them up at Cali, right? Load them into the boat, take them on a wee circular tour, and land them back and tell them they're in England. In actual fact, you've just taken them back to France.
I seen through the week there some lawyers get caught telling the illegal immigrants, go to the doctors, say you've got this depression, say you've got that, get this medication. So would you think it's fair? Should these all do good or loyalists, no, lawyers, do you think it's fair they should be took their licence to practice law took off them? Because a lawyer should really be impartial, so should the prosecution, and the jury or the judge decides.
Well, I don't know. I know that lawyers have got rules of what they can and what they can't do. So if they've broken the rules, then they'll lose their licence. If they've not broken the rules, then they're no. Just off the top of my head, Billy, it's the first time I've heard it since you told me. I would have thought a lawyer's job was to advise their clients as best they can, and if that's the best advice they can give them, then they're giving them the best advice they can. I presume it's up to the doctor to decide whether they actually are depressed and actually should give them the medication or not. No, the lawyer, you know. So
Well,
I don't know.
I've had plenty of experience with lawyers through my years, and they can't give you a legal advice, if that makes sense. They can't tell you to do something. They can't tell you to go and lie. A lawyer's job's to represent you, to tell the truth, not to tell lies to help you.
Did you hear the one about the florist that goes to get a haircut, and the barber cuts the hair, and she goes to pay him at the end of the day. He says, "No, I can't take your money off you. I'm doing things for charity this week." Oh, she says, "Thanks very much." Next day, the barber comes along, opens his shop, and there's these bunches of flowers everywhere that she's left for him, you know, to thank him. So that day, he's got a policeman, and he's cutting the policeman's hair, and the police comes to pay him. He says, "No, I can't take any money. I'm doing everything for charity the day." So fine, so the boy goes away. When the barber comes the next day, open the shop, there's a bag of donuts sitting there for the policeman. So that day he's cutting away, and he's cutting his lawyer's hair. So the lawyer goes to pay him. He says, "No, I can't take the money off you. I'm doing everything for charity this week." Oh, the lawyer says, "That's fine." The boy comes into his work. The barber comes into his work the next day, and there's 7 lawyers waiting to get their haircut.
That sounds about right.
You've heard that one before, haven't you?
I've not heard it before. I'm trying to remain professional here. It's my first interview, and I'm trying to be professional.
You like to laugh. You like to laugh.
I like to laugh. Lawyers and prosecutors, it's when you're in court, it's just a theatre. It's a big game to them. Who's buying dinner tonight? If I win, you're buying dinner. That's the kind of job they're in, isn't it? They're all pals.
Aye, well, I suppose professionally they've got to get on with each other.
Right, so moving on to recent times now.
Aye.
Where we are today. How do you feel? I know we've spoke about it. I know how you feel, but for the viewers' sake, after all the woo-ha of the SNP finance scandal and everything else, and now everything's went quiet, I think we both agree we're entitled to a public inquiry here.
I think once the police investigation is over, we need to find out what the score is. I mean, if it comes that wrongdoing's happened, if some kind of fraud's taking place, if money's actually been squirreled away into somebody's bank account and somebody's made a profit in it, then I think they should be prosecuted. But if after all this public money's been spent, we find that in actual fact, hinting out there was never a problem in the first place, I think I would agree with you. We need to find out how this went on for so long and how much public money was spent on this, and why. I mean, it was a person made a complaint, but I am sure that I've heard stories about other parties where money's been a bit iffy and people have made complaints, but we've not had 2 years of police.
No.
I mean, why this time? And maybe there's very good reasons for it. You and I didn't know, but I think you're right. We need an explanation. Know. We should be given an explanation once it's over. Obviously, when it's an ongoing case, and we just have to wait. But at the end of the day, we need either a prosecution or we need an explanation. One of the two.
It's went on for long enough where there should be a prosecution or there shouldn't be. This has been going on for a couple of years, this investigation, before we even knew about it.
Uh-huh.
And then they've gathered all their evidence. They've been through it all. I wouldn't say it brought down Nicola Sturgeon. I think putting that man, rapist, into a women's prison, I think that's what really brought her down. That's a wrong move. That no matter what way you look at it, he's a man. He can put a wig on and hide his tattoo he got to make him look tough in his face, and he should never have been put in with women. Nobody's committed offences against women.
Yeah, the when you say it like that, you know, she should never have put him in there. Of course, she didn't put him in there. The rules were such, and there had been rules for years. What they didn't do is intervene to change the rules. They just let the rules ride. Now you could argue that they should have the rule was that daft, and they should have changed the rule. Maybe that's true or no, but I don't think it's true to say that she put him in the jail. The rule in the women's prison, the rules put him in the women's prison. What they didn't do was intervene to stop it. But then again, you could then argue that if they did, well, the government can't just intervene and change things just because it's inconvenient to them. Yeah. So I'm not sure about that one. What I do agree with you, that whatever the rights or wrongs of the Gender Recognition Act, that it certainly didn't do the SNP any favours electorally. No. It might have been the right thing morally to do, because I remember the bad days when homosexuals were illegal and you could get put in jail for being a homosexual, and even when they stopped it being illegal, all the stigma that was there about being homosexual and everything. I mean, I did it when I was a laddie. You always made a fool of homosexuals and everything. We all did it. That was a terrible time for them. Yeah. And I wouldn't want to see that happen to trans people. I didn't want to see that happen to anybody. So, but I just think that again, whatever they did, it wasn't a good idea electorally.
Again, I'm pro-trans. Mm-hmm. As long as the person's 16 or 18, they go through a couple of years, 2 or 3 years of counselling, mental health, psychiatrists, psychologists, to let them explain to them the drugs they're going to have to take, the operations they're going to get, and at the end of that process, then by all means they're adults, they can do what they like. And I know the rules about putting trans people into a women's prison. Genuine people, I'm fine with that. But if you've committed a crime, especially rape, against another woman, you should not be put in a women's prison. No, that should have been looked at. Even the Scottish Prison Service should have contacted the SNP and says this is
the
I
government.
know there's rules, but this is
Aye.
with the
Aye.
so. And like you say, I do think the lonely age and kids can make these choices. I don't think it would have done any government any favours.
Well, you know, it's. I'm not sure, because I think though that the gender recognition thing was part of the Greens' policies. And I think in order, remember, the SNP and the Greens are in coalition in government,
They need
and
to
I
be.
think that was one of the price that the SNP had to pay, that and the bottle deposit scheme,
Which didn't work.
to get the, well, which wasn't given a chance to work. It never worked because the UK government put a stop to it. But it works in other countries where it's been brought in. And there's going to be one in the UK. The UK government didn't stop it because they said it wouldn't work. They stopped it because they said they wanted the same scheme right over the whole of the UK, and we would just have to wait until they were ready to put one in the UK. But again, it's and our electoral system is there. Because we've not got a first past the post in Scotland, it means that parties have got to collaborate, but that sometimes means you've got to accept policies. So the SNP have had to accept some green policies that the SNP themselves maybe are not put forward.
Yeah,
Is what I'm trying to say.
totally agree. Totally agree.
And that's just the way that our democracy works at the moment. This
Totally agree.
System we've got.
So we both agree the SNP need the Greens to retain their majority in the government.
That's a matter of numeracy. You know, it's just numbers.
Yeah.
You could always run a minority government. SNP have run minority governments. You can always do that, and see what happens. You know, you put up a budget and see if the other parties have voted doing. But if they voted doing, they run the risk of election.
Yeah.
But you can do that. You can run and had it been up to me, I might have, I might have just went with a minority government. But the powers that be are better politicians than me. They understand these things better than I do. So they went into coalition, and there you go.
The Greens, to me, look like a party that want everything to happen tomorrow. I don't think they have an understanding of the cost to the working man. And I'll explain it. I know we've spoken about this in depth. So for the viewers, the low emission zones. So say you've got wee Mr. Smith, who's got a 14 plate Eco Astra. He works hard to pay his rent, his bills, feed his kids, but he lives within one of these low emission zones. He's getting fined every night, so he's got to get rid of his car. So then he maybe can't get to work, so then he's got to go on the brew. And I explained to you something I thought would make more sense was like over several years in the MOTs, lower the emissions in the MOTs bit by bit, and give the working class people time to change. But these things just seem to be, they're getting rushed. And it's just affecting people in the pocket. And the cost of living crisis, it doesn't sit right with me.
Mm-hmm. I'm surprised. I'm not disagreeing with you.
No.
What I'm surprised at is that the TV hasn't been all over it, taking people like examples, like you just gave, and they're actually interviewing people who have had to, lose their job or sell their car or whatever it is because of the low emission zones. We've not heard it. And I wonder if that's because it's not happening or something.
It is happening, and see the bus that feeds the homeless in Glasgow.
Aye.
That didn't even get exempt.
No, but
That gets fined for going
Aye.
feeding the homeless.
aye. But they had £200,000 in the bank that they could. They got an extension, and they had £200,000 in the bank because they had actually went on a GoFundMe to, I believe. But again, I read this on Facebook. I didn't know if half the things I'm reading on there are true or not.
See, I had to go on the internet and look and read and try and find it. The truth's always in the middle, at best.
Yes.
But, cost of living crisis, it's really not the right time to be hitting people in the pocket.
There's never a good time to hit anybody in the
There
pocket.
never is. But it could be done more sensibly. Every year, the MOT emissions must hit a lower target. And in several years, most cars are going to be electric, unless you can afford.
Mm-hmm.
I was speaking to my wife about it, and I says, so you've got wee Mr. Smith with his wee Astra. It's an eco Astra and everything, but it still falls
Aye.
out with the rules. It's not new enough. If it was a year newer, it'd be all right. So say you've got a millionaire who's got a 5.6 turbo Bentley. Surely that's still spewing the same pollution into there as wee Mr. Smith's Eco Astra. He can just afford a newer car, he doesn't get fined. Does that make sense? Or?
Oh, well, I don't know about making sense. I think I think if they want to do something about lowering emissions, the thought of a way of doing it, which is the scheme they've got in place. I wouldn't say the scheme they've got in place is good. I'm not saying there isn't any other ways, better ways they could have done it. I don't know. Me, I drive an electric car, so
Yep.
I'm no concerned about that kind of thing personally. I would be concerned if people are losing their jobs because as you outlined, I'd be concerned about that. Or somebody has got a wee business as a joiner and they've got an old van or something and the business is ticking over, but no enough to buy them a new van, and is that the business going to go and their apprentice out of job? So all these things would bother me. I'm just surprised it's no over the papers and all these examples that's happening to people. That's all.
Because they would rather talk about everything else but the troubles we've got in Britain. They kind of don't want us to know. We've spoke at length and we've spoke about a wee joiner with his van or a welder with a van. If it doesn't fit within the criteria, if they go to price a job in a certain place in Glasgow, and this is going to be rolled out through every Scottish city, but just now it's Glasgow. So if they go to price a job, they've then got to add on top of the price of the job, all the fines are going to need to pay by the time the job's finished. Whereas somebody with a newer van can go in and price a job cheaper. So the richer person with the better van's going to get the more work.
The rich get richer and the poor get poorer.
That's the point I was trying to make.
You're right. You're right.
So, moving on to our new SNP leader.
I think he's done what?
Really?
Aye.
Well, he was Education Secretary. Education's taken a bit of a dent.
So they say. I mean,
so they say.
So they say, but then again, see, they kept quoting these PISA figures, but the PISA figures have actually got better, so they've stopped reporting them. It's also, you've got to look at the effect the way the Scottish system worked and the curriculum for excellence worked, and it's not a system now in schools where it's about retaining and being able to regurgitate knowledge. It's a system of being able to use that knowledge, and these league tables, when they set up that way, they were about how you retain knowledge, know how you use the knowledge. So Scottish education, again, didn't look so good when you measure it in that way. If you measured it in other ways about the confidence of the young people, etc., etc., Scotland was getting better. So
Yeah. Well, there's always two sides to a story. That's life. But then he was the health secretary.
uh-huh.
The
and
NHS in Scotland's not doing too good.
I don't know. They've managed to avert any strikes in the health service. You've always got to, and I know people didn't like you comparing one country to another, but you've got to, because you need to have a baseline.
Yep.
And it seems to be better than other parts, or at least better, or at least as good as other parts of the UK. So, given the same set of circumstances, they seem to be doing all right. What we do have, though, is a press which will jump on anything. I mean, blaming a penny can't backfire, but it's all over the TV and the newspapers. So you've got a media that want to bring everything down and tell you Scotland's just shite, and we're not. We're
No.
just a middling country that's going about our business as best we can. Some things are good, some things aren't good.
Yeah.
Just like everybody else.
But I can only speak from experience if we were in local hospital. The last time I was in, the charge nurse was trying to find 94 beds. Which, how did it get that bad? A paramedic told me don't quote me on this, I might put one or two numbers. There's 14 ambulances in Ayrshire, and most of the time, between 6 and 8 of them are parked up at the hospital with patients inside them.
Mm-hmm.
That's wrong. It should never have got that bad. Is that because there was cutbacks, and when COVID hit, that's when it showed all the faults.
Well, you're right about the ambulances queuing up, because, again, that was over the news. I don't know why it occurred. I don't know. What I do know is that you're not hearing about it in the news any longer. So, in the last couple of times, and I'm up at the hospital a fair bit, there was a while where I could see them queued up outside, but I've not seen them queued up outside for the last month or so. So something's changed and it's got better. I don't know whether it was just difficulty at the time, whether too many folk were ill at the one time, or what it was.
What's got better is they've started this care for home thing, where nurses come to your house and do a bit of the caring, which makes sense. Which makes you're more comfortable when you're in home, as long as it's nothing too serious. It does make sense. And I was in that time, the time before. There's a great service. It's called the Early Cancer Diagnostic Service. Now, it's no for cancer. It's this pilot scheme, and I hope it continues. I hope they keep funding it. And what they do is, we see people like me who are in and out, this problem, that problem. They give you a full MOT from head to toe. They look at everything, take all your bloods, sputum samples, you go for MRIs, they do everything top to bottom. And then they find out where all your problems are and treat it. And that is a much more effective way of dealing with repeat patients. So I hope that system keeps going. I hope they keep funding it.
Most of it take me into every time they check me for one thing, they find something else wrong with me. So.
I'm the same. It must have been good in a past life. Nah, it's just, how do you think he'll do overall as a leader?
I think it's a hard act. Nicola Sturgeon is a hard act to follow as leader. She was very popular in the party. Not with everybody, but the majority, she was very popular. Hard act to follow. I think he's doing a good job so far. Or he's doing it, sorry, I'll say it this way. He's doing a better job than I thought he was going to do.
Well,
he comes over on the TV quite articulate. Doesn't seem to say daft things.
Well, I beg to differ. Seeing when he done his First Minister's speech, and he standed there and he says, my Attorney General's white, my this is white, my that's white. See if you flip that, could you imagine a white person standing there complaining that Attorney General's a Muslim and that person's a Muslim? It wouldn't have went down well, would it have? It wouldn't have, there'd have been uproar. That's the bit which made me think time will tell.
Time will tell.
I'll enjoy waiting and watching it.
Well, see, I mean, the good thing, I suppose, if there's any good thing about politics, the good thing is you and I can sit here and pontificate and give our views, and that's all we're doing is giving our views here. The truth will come out when it comes to the votes. People are saying, oh, the SNP's in turmoil, blah, 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 Labour are going to win, such and such. Well, we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. We'll see what people, when it comes to the day, we'll see if people are, well, I would say, see if people are being fooled by what they're being told, or whether people have been thinking for themselves and actually putting two and two together for themselves, like you say, researching it and finding out.
I don't think the SNP will fail the next election. To the hardcore supporters, I don't think it matters to them who's leading the party. They're wanting that party, they're wanting independence, and there is a large group of their people.
I think you're probably right, but as I say, we'll see what happens. I do think that it depends on whether the SNP co-split. I think once you've decided for independence, I think I'd be surprised if many people then change their mind back to vote in the UK. But there's a lot of people who maybe vote SNP but aren't that fussy about independence. And it's how many of them, and they're the ones that could change. But as we already said, in Scotland, where you're going to vote for, you can vote for Labour if you like, but that's not going to change much. It's not going to take you back into the EU. It's not going to fix the extra bedroom tax thing, the rape clause. It's not going to fix that. There's a danger under the internal market thing that we'll end up having to pay for our parking at hospitals. In Scotland, you don't pay to park at a hospital. You do in England. So there's a danger that Labour would take us back to that. There's also a danger that we'd have to pay university fees, because if you look at it, if you were the Labour government and you were in power across the UK, why would you let people in England and Wales have to pay for university education, but people in Scotland didn't have to pay for it? Why would you allow that to happen? So these are the things that people have got to think about when they use their vote. You know, it's
and prescriptions.
Aye.
We get free prescriptions, which we're very lucky. Labour's obviously, like you say, they're not going to charge people in England and let people in Scotland get their prescriptions free.
So people have just got to think about what they're doing.
There's never a win-win.
No.
There's always a loss. No matter what.
There's always a compromise.
Yeah, always.
But that's life, isn't it? There's always a compromise in life. You can never get exactly what you want.
That's it. You learn. You get bumps, you bruises, and you continue. You continue on. Now, you had a wisecrack about the ferries, right? So I've got to have a wisecrack back. Right. Everybody knows about the overspending. I'm not going to get into that nonsense. But what I'm more going to point out is, to make Nicola Sturgeon look good, they painted windows on a ferry to launch it to make it look as if they'd further progress than what they had. Whose idea do you think it was to just paint the windows on and we'll launch it? Who would come up with that?
I have to put my hand up.
Was it you? Who was the painter? He done a good job. Up to do the living room.
I never heard that, but I never heard that before. Painting the windows to make it look good.
I always thought that was a kind of wacky idea. Costs a lot of money to get a ferry back into a dry dock and
Paint the windows.
stabilised to put real windows in.
Oh, I see. There wasn't any windows and they were just
No, just painted. Nicola was there and Hamza was there, they were all clapping and they just painted the windows on. You'll find it on YouTube, watch it, it's funny. It is really funny.
Very good.
Yeah, so that's been an hour. It's my first live interview. I think I've done no too bad.
You've done perfect, pal. I'm not sure if my answers, you might have to edit out some of my answers.
This is a no edit podcast.
Is it?
It's a no edit. This goes the way it goes. Keeping it real.
Right,
That's
okay.
it.
So I can sing a wee song there?
If you want, it's up to you.
No.
But I would like to end the interview here before I start.
Before I start singing.
Before I effort up. So thank you for being my guest.
I'm very proud to have been your first interview and every success in the future.
Thank you
Do
very
you like
much.
my new watch?
I do, so I bought you.
See, Billy gave me that watch.
That's so he doesn't. Oh, you've got to tell the people you passed your physics.
Oh, and my maths, I'm going to university next year in September.
Retired. So I bought my watch so he wouldn't miss his classes.
Great watch.
No excuses. No excuses.
Anyway, pal.
So, and thanks for being a friend. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And I look forward to our next walk on Monday, hopefully.
Hopefully.
Health permitting, weather permitting. We've got a lot of health problems. We try our best.
We'll be there.
We get there.
We'll get there.
So thank you. Thank you everybody for watching. Like, subscribe, and always remember, this channel, we keep it real.
Bye.
As always, take care, stay safe. God bless. Bye-bye. That's us, mate. First interview.
We're still recording.
Linda will edit that. My technical advisor. She'll edit that. So, next week.